Welcome back to the Long View. I'm Julian Zelizer, and delighted as always to be here with Charlie Sykes of To the Contrary and much more. Charlie, welcome back.
Hey, good to be with you.
So there's a lot to talk about, and I did want to start with the Epstein files, which I know you've written about and thought about. Um, and I'm curious if you could kind of. There's some people who say this shouldn't be taken too seriously, meaning that it's a distraction from other issues, the economy, presidential power. Can you talk about why, from what you've seen so far, this is a pretty serious matter involving the president?
Well, obviously, it is a serious matter involving the president of the United States. If in fact he is connected to an elitist ring of sex traffickers, I mean, I think the bizarre normality of our lives is that somehow we don't any longer recognize that kind of criminal behavior as being disqualifying. I mean, here we are in Trump 2.0, and we're not even in a position where we are talking about the fact that he's a convicted felon who has been credibly accused and found liable for sexual abuse. We've kind of shrugged that off. But this story, I think, goes to just some fundamental issues about the a rigged legal system that treats the wealthy, the powerful, and the well-connected completely differently than it treats others, and their willingness to use their power to exploit young women. I mean, this actually, I mean, it may not be foreign affairs, it may not be the economy, but it goes to a fundamental question of the fairness of American society and whether or not we're going to take this kind of abuse seriously. So, if if character and honesty actually matters at all, then this is a highly relevant issue.
And by the way, Charlie, we lost your image. They have a picture of you, and I can hear you, but it's okay. I mean,
I'll
you're
be
coming through loud and clear. And I'll just keep. I'll keep. Oh, there you are. Um, and so I think you're right. I mean, I think kind of the surprise is this isn't kind of what is emerging, at least already, more top level, and it says a lot about where certainly the GOP has moved, and even more broadly, American culture. Do you think this last batch of emails, from what you've seen, how does that add to what we already know? How does that deepen our understanding of this scandal?
Well, first of all, I mean, it's an appetizer for what is to come. And I think everybody knows that there's a lot more to come. We need obviously to continue to make the distinction between evidence that would stand up in a court of law, but also what we know. And what we know is a lot. We know that Donald Trump goes way back with Epstein. We know that they hung out together. We know that they shared their passion for young women. We know the association was both personal and professional. So this is something that, again, maybe we had memory hold it with so many other things, but these emails make it very, very graphically clear that they were connected in this particular way, and that perhaps Epstein was using information to blackmail the man who is now the president of the United States. But this also does, put tremendous pressure on Congress to take a vote to end the cover up. I mean, what's extraordinary to me, and I've talked about this in other forums as well, is how much political capital Donald Trump and the Republicans are willing to spend for us not to see what else is in those documents. I think the Wall Street Journal makes a great point when it says Donald Trump is his own worst enemy. If there's nothing to hide, why are you having these fevered, frenzied, sweaty meetings in the Situation Room trying to strong arm Republicans not to have even a vote on releasing the Epstein files, the files that you promised to release, that your administration has talked about endlessly to about releasing them. So I mean, this is really an extraordinary moment, and for any of us, and I think you and I talked about this months ago. Anybody that thought this story was going to go away, I think we're somewhat naive. But also, isn't it amazing, Julian, with all the other stories that have a shelf life of about 10 seconds, that here we are in the middle of November of 2025, and we are still talking about the Epstein files, and will be, I think, frankly, for the rest of the year,
I
at
think what
least.
you I think what you're getting at accurately is beyond the egregious. Egregious is too light a word of the behavior we know this all is about. It touches on so many elements of his presidency, from
Right.
the actual world he lives in, as opposed to the campaign world he promises.
Right.
To it's you talked a couple weeks ago. We were talking about the East Wing, and there was something visually about that which captured a lot about him that other things couldn't. I think this is the same. So do you think so? This discharge, which is it's a technical word, but it's a procedure that basically allows members to force something, a vote on a bill, and this involves the DOJ files. Some Republicans are standing firm and supporting
Yeah.
the discharge. How serious is this defection and the ongoing split we keep talking about, whether it will happen? Is this coalition something significant?
Well, okay. So, a couple of caveats here.
Yep.
It is, of course, premature to say this is going to bring down the Trump administration. It would be naive to think that this is the moment at which Republicans take the off ramp from Donald Trump, or that they will treat him as a lame duck. But having said that, this jailbreak among Republicans is truly extraordinary. I mean, keep in mind how passionately Donald Trump feels about keeping this secret. How much pressure he put on people like Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace to take their names off the discharge petition, and yet next week, according to all the accounts that I've seen, you're talking about the possibility of dozens of normally compliant Republican members of the House voting to defy Donald Trump, voting against the cover up of the sex trafficking ring. There have been some suggestions that as many as 100
Wow.
members of the House will break with him. Now, again, this has not happened so far in Trump 2.0. And for it to break on an issue that Trump feels so seriously about is extraordinary. So I do think that that's that moment where you go, all right, so this is not business as usual. This does have a different feel to it. Again, not getting ahead of ourselves, not engaging in rational exuberance, not thinking that Lucy won't pull the football back again. But this is something that Donald Trump really sincerely and desperately did not want to happen, and it's about to happen.
And why? I mean, so these are MAGA Republicans, at
Yeah.
least the ones you named, maybe more, but why? Like, so why are they doing what they refuse to do on so many other issues, so many other kinds of egregious behavior? Here, at least a few seem to be holding the line, but maybe many more. What's going on?
Well, this is their issue. This is not something that was cooked up in the MSNBC green room. This is not something that was pushed out by the progressive left or by the mainstream media. They have been marinating in these conspiracy theories for years now. This is a very, very big deal. One of the things that Donald Trump has proven that he's really good at is distracting people from things. He has a sense, I think, a reptilian sense of when something is of real concern or as emotional resonance with the base, he will jump on it. But what he's discovering right now is that he can't turn off a switch that he's turned on or that he's helped turn on. And so whether you're talking about QAnon or whether you're talking about, Kash Patel or Pam Bondi, these are folks who for years have been telling the Republican base this is important, this is terrible, this is a cover-up. We are the ones who are going to expose it. And now for them to pivot and say nothing to see here, it's just not working. It is not working. So unlike almost every other issue, this is something that their own base cares about, and they care about it passionately.
And there's a there, meaning, I mean, that's this week's emails suggest it is conspiracy thinking, but
Yeah.
there's something quite real in terms of the players, the substance, and his involvement with Epstein. So this will only fuel it.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's going to be messy. I mean, there are a lot of prominent people in all of
Yep.
this. And there will be a lot of Democrats. And by the way, you asked before why this is relevant.
Yep.
And there's always been that and again, it's a quasi conspiracy theory question out there. You know, is there compromise
Mhm.
on Trump and others? Was there an attempt to blackmail them? If it does turn out, if there is evidence that the president of the United States is being blackmailed, that somebody has something over him, that is a major story. That is one of the biggest stories, perhaps ever. You would not be able to get any sort of a security clearance at any level of government if people thought that there were bad actors who had information on you that they intended to leverage against you. What about if we're talking about the president of the United States? So clearly, this is uh, this is uh, this is relevant. And again, you and I have talked about this before. I do think that there's kind of a mystery to all of this. There's a lot that we know. There's a lot we don't know.
Yeah.
Donald Trump has been Teflon on one issue after another. He could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue, and he got away with it. I can grab women by the you know what. Didn't affect him. Found liable for sexual abuse. He's a convicted felon. He tried to overturn the government. He survived all of that stuff. What is it about these files that has him so spooked? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But the way he's behaving makes the question inevitable, which is again why even like the Wall Street Journal is saying, really, why are you behaving this way? You're the one who's basically saying something really big is in here, something really, really hairy, and we don't want to open this up. So
Yeah. Literally meeting in the situation room about this, which is in itself an unbelievable detail. This is not what the situation room usually is for.
no, it is not.
And finally, on this point, you wrote a piece. I mean, there's the issue: does it bring down the presidency, which is that's a big step, but does it turn him into a lame duck, which I actually think is a probably more pointed question, meaning there's a finality to his power. That you think, again, it's early to tell,
Yep.
but that's kind of a possibility we're looking for. The normal politics kicks in.
Well, that's right. I mean, so technically he is a lame duck, but there
Yeah.
there is a moment in every term limited president where power begins to shift away, and this vote had that kind of a vibe to it or a whiff to it that the demands that he made in the past that he always got. It didn't happen. So, is there a power shift? And this also comes in the context of a lot of other things. I mean, he has not had a great couple of weeks, despite the Democratic cave in on the shutdown. His poll numbers are alarmingly bad. The election had all kinds of warning signs for Republicans. The Supreme Court showing skepticism on his tariffs. Um, the sort of tone deafness on affordability, that sort of sense that he he had lost the plot and he was just throwing stuff up against the wall. Like somebody walks in and goes, "Hey, 50-year mortgages, fine, boom, throw that up against the wall. I'm going to send out $2,000 checks, throw that up against the wall."
Yeah.
That there is kind of a sense that this administration is flailing, and that the optics have gone from bad to worse, and then this comes, and so this is not good timing for him, and so you do wonder at what point do people begin to say, okay, are you going to wait till the midterms, or is there going to be kind of a drift away? We don't know. I
And
mean, past experiences, no, but this is the moment.
and obviously the people that everyone should be looking at are the Republicans on Capitol Hill, which is
Yeah.
what we're talking about. But is there bigger break, which makes him vulnerable then? And also, do voters start to say maybe it's time to balance power again going into the midterms?
Well, exactly. And I got to say, okay, so among the many surprises of the last week, because sometimes we say we're surprised by things, but we shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I think one of the surprises of the last week was that as people begin to sift through the midterms and they see the hemorrhaging of support among Latino voters for Republicans, suddenly it's becoming obvious that Hail Mary gerrymandering gambit that Republicans were so invested in places like Texas, they might actually not work for them. It might actually backfire because a lot of those new districts the Republicans were drawing were drawn with the assumption that Latino Hispanic voters would continue to drift toward the Republican Party. Well, what happens if Trump 2.0 has completely alienated exactly those voters, which you're seeing in places like Virginia and Pennsylvania and in California? Then suddenly the midterms look much uglier for the Republicans, and I sense that that is having an effect among the elected representatives who might have thought, okay, it's going to be a bad year, but we've rigged the maps, the economy's going to come back, and now they're going, ooh, we don't know.
And so that's a good transition. And now that we're a little out of the shutdown, a few days away, and it is incredible to watch, the news shifts.
Yeah.
So as much backlash, it's on to other issues. But your take, I mean, you did say the Democratic cave, or I can't remember exactly what you said, but what's your interpretation of how both sides politically handled the end of the shutdown?
Well, what I didn't understand was the timing of the Democrats doing it. This was a moment at which they were feeling some momentum, some optimism. Donald Trump himself was blaming the shutdown for the bad performance in the midterms. He clearly was recognizing that Republicans were losing the battle. We were about to get a big Supreme Court decision on the SNAP benefits. It was all hanging there. And then on Sunday, what happens? You have the 8 defectors who say, this is the time to surrender and get nothing. I think you and I discussed this. I always had the question, what was the Democratic endgame? I guess I didn't think it would be just giving up and getting nothing in return for it. And I think that if you're going to shut down the government for the longest term ever, you would presumably have a plan. You would presumably at least have some face-saving way out. And I think it felt weak. The reaction of the base was absolutely predictable that they would do it. And I think they let Donald Trump off the hook. I do understand the argument, that the pain was about to become too much. But at a certain point, you've already invested 40 days in it and you come out with nothing. And this idea that you would get a promise for a vote on the Obamacare subsidies, look, that's nothing. I mean, that's less than, a mess of pottage, because they're not going to get it. So all the people who are experiencing those increased premiums, they're screwed. So what was that all about? I think is a legitimate question. But I also think it's probably going to be forgotten because of the pace of things. Although we need to remember that the government is open only until January. And so I wouldn't be surprised if January is just as messy as what we just went through.
And when you look at the election results, which we haven't spoken since then, in terms of the vulnerabilities for Republicans in the midterms, what do you see from the results that are useful in thinking of 2026 versus what's particular to now?
No, I mean, I was not surprised that the Democrats won. I think the margins were what was truly extraordinary. And the fact that Democrats picked up in every single demographic group. I think my big takeaway was that, some of the groups in the electorate who had drifted over to Trump, including, working class minorities, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, young people, they were only renting them. So now the question is, can Democrats, take advantage of this? Can they exploit this? But you saw this across the board. And also, I think you did get an indication that some things matter. We keep having this discussion. Does anything matter? Does anything change anything? I actually think, and I think maybe you and I speculated on this earlier in the year, those viral videos of the ICE thuggery, the immigration enforcement, those have gone viral. And I think they're having a tremendous impact, particularly among youth voters and in the Hispanic community, where you have just a lot of fear and anxiety. So those images have backfired badly. And I think the real danger for Republicans is, that Trump's not going to pivot away from that there are going to be more ICE agents, more raids, and more videos. So the thing that is killing you, instead of doing less, they're going to do more of it.
And what are your thoughts? I mean, I don't know how much you followed. I assume you have. I've been trying to read more and see more about what's going on in Chicago, where you have the border patrol who's there now.
Yeah.
In addition to ICE, I mean, it's an amazing assertion of federal power in very aggressive ways. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, yes, it is, and I think the plan was to expand that to other cities. This is
Yeah.
something that Donald Trump. There are certain things that are viscerally Trumpist that you can just tell go right to his id. Having those troops on the street is one of them. The masked ICE agents, rappelling from helicopters is another. Blowing up boats and killing people. Frankly, this is they are tumescent about all of this. But I'm looking at, speaking of Chicago, you saw that story out of ProPublica
No.
about the big raid. This is what's really interesting is
Yeah.
how performative they are. I mean, these are very high profile. So ProPublica is out with this report, and PBS had it as well, that famous raid on that South Shore apartment building. Remember they put out a sizzle video of how cool it was. Um, they found little evidence to support the government's claims. ProPublica discovered the names of the 21 people they arrested of them, but federal prosecutors have not filed a single charge against anyone who was arrested. Not
Hmm.
one. Nor have they revealed any evidence showing that two immigrants arrested in the building belong to that Venezuelan gang. So, not only do you have these sort of high profile cinematic attacks, the more people look into it and go, wait, you actually didn't catch any of the bad guys. I mean, after all of that, not one federal indictment. So I think this gap between what they said they were going to do, the horrific nature of the imagery, and the fact that they don't have much to show for it is a real problem. I mean, it's a substantive problem, but it's also a political problem.
And they're going against very fundamental American principles that I
Yeah,
think are still there of individual rights, of limited federal authority, things as we have said, conservatives for a long time
yeah.
valorized and spoke about. And I think they're underestimating, in my opinion, that those are quite enduring, not just in blue cities, but across the country. People have heard about this, learned about this, and I don't think this is going to sit well.
Oh, I think this is a very, very important point. I think that maybe there was a certain level of complacency about those values, but we're going through a process where people are relearning them. People are going, okay, this is why due process matters. What does it mean to be free? Why are we not a society where the government can simply demand, "Show me your papers"? And I do think that those are deeply held values, and that's one of the reasons why I think those videos are so effective, because that's the moment where you go, "Is this what you want America to be like?" No, it's not. Um, and I think that as you see the rhetoric coming from the JD Vance post-liberal wing of the party, it plays very, very well on the very online right,
Mhm.
but I don't think it has much purchase among average Americans who, again, want the border secured, want illegal immigrants who commit crimes to be deported, but that's not what they're seeing. And so I agree. I think there's kind of a great relearning about some of these American values going on that's really challenging to, again, this post liberalism of this administration.
And I have a final question. As always, everyone, thank you for listening to us and all subscribers for subscribing to our Substacks. And as always, we hope you consider becoming paid subscribers for those who are not, to support what we're doing, to support these conversations, to support independent media, which is really, I think, thriving in many ways, but needs your support so that that can continue. Um, there's been a bunch of, I mean, there have been judges, conservative, Republican appointed judges who've been outspoken about what's going on, including on these issues. Yeah. Michael Luttig is one of the most well known. Recently, Judge Mark Wolf, who's also a Reagan appointee, is resigning so that he can be more vocal. What is the significance for you following this of these judges speaking out, even in difficult political moments, what do they add to the times?
Well, first of all, these are very highly respected jurists, and they speak to other jurists. There's a large universe of conservative judges out there, including from the Federalist Society, who are not necessarily MAGA, who are not necessarily Trumpified. And they are watching, I think, listening to these conservative judges, reminding them of the conservative legal principles they used to take seriously. And I think that that's having an effect throughout the judiciary. You're seeing it a lot at the circuit court level, I mean, at the district court level, and then in the circuit court level as well. The big question to me and for everybody is whether or not the justices of the Supreme Court are also paying attention to this, whether they share the sort of what time is it that they're getting from these judges. Because if you're a conservative lawyer, judge, clerk, you probably know somebody in the Justice Department or somebody in a U.S. Attorney's office or somebody in a court who's up against some of these issues being raised by Trump's post-constitutional behavior. And so this is really a challenge for Trump. And again, we're going to see what happens. That that I know you talked about it. That argument in front of the Supreme Court about tariffs was kind of revealing that the conservative judges sort of remembered we are conservatives and that we are not going to rubber stamp this imperial presidency. And by the way, can I just throw in one other point?
Yeah.
And again, maybe this is my own personal perspective. I think one of the undercovered stories of the year has been the aggressiveness with which the Roman Catholic Church is going after Donald Trump's immigration policies. We have an American Pope for the first time in history, and this American Pope has made it very clear that he is going to be quite outspoken about the inhumanity and the cruelty of the immigration policies, and he is calling the Catholic Church to arms. And just this week, the Conference of Bishops issued a very rare statement, just a stinging indictment of the unchristian elements of this. Now, this again goes right at the heart of the claims of the Trump administration that we are upholding Christian values. We are the defenders of Christendom. We have all these rad trad, Catholic converts like J.D. Vance who are tremendously influential. And when the Pope himself is calling bullshit on them, that's a problem. So I'm really interested to see how that plays out.
Really important point at the end, and I have not actually followed all of that, but the church still has immense power, not just internationally but nationally. So that's something to keep our eye on and talk about next time we convene. See where that is. Charlie Sykes, to the contrary. Thanks for joining the Long View.
Thank you. Always enjoy it.
Okay, bye-bye.